Tonight is debate night. We have two back-to-back debates, actually. So right after this debate at 9 p.m. Eastern, we will have another debate at on the 1619 project. I'm not really all that familiar with it, but so I'm excited to see it. But first up, we do have a debate, and it's going to be on Black Lives Matter, critical race theory, and equity. So let's bring on our debaters. First up, we have Taj. How are you, Taj?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Good. So if you want to give a brief introduction, tell people a little bit about yourself, where you lie on the political spectrum, and where people can find you.
Hey, I'm Taj. I'm with a YouTube channel called Bars and Joysticks, where we intersect culture, hip-hop, music, and, of course, politics. I would classify myself, I'm technically a liberal. I'm a social democrat. That's pretty much as far left as you can be without being socialist, technically. I believe in government protections, but I still believe in capitalism at the same time. And I'm looking forward to talking about things like BLM, how they're beneficial to society, talking about equity, why that's important, as well as critical race theory. I hear a lot of Christians out in the South talk about CRT, and they talk about it like it's like a boogeyman term, right? And I really think that
let's wait for her to get on
okay, my bad. That's not even an open argument. My apologies. Happy to be here. I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next up, we have Keisha. So let's bring her on. How are you tonight?
Hi, everybody. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you want to give a brief introduction, tell people a little bit about yourself, where you lie on the political spectrum, and where people can find you.
Sure. So my name is Keisha King. I lie on the right. I would say, not far right. To me, it's not far right. I don't know. That's kind of a relative term, but I have my YouTube channel that I'm building up. It's Keisha King. And also I have a consulting company that I help conservative candidates with their marketing campaigns and their fundraising efforts and things like that. And that is kingconsulting.com.
Great. And I will have the links to both of our guests in the description. So if you guys want to go check them out, you guys can go look at that. Also, for if you guys are watching this from any Facebook group, make sure you sign into StreamYard. It should be in the description above. Otherwise, we are going to only see this Facebook user. So Facebook users, sign in so we can see who you are. Other than that, so what we're going to do is we will give opening statements, can be as little as 1 minute, no longer than 5. About your topic, what your stance is, and then we will open up the floor. At the end, we will have a Q&A portion, and that's where we'll take questions from the audience. If you guys have any questions, tag Politically Provoked and who your question is addressed to, and we will we'll get to all those. And then after the Q&A is when we will do closing statements. So I guess we can pull up the rules, but I don't know if we really are. I'll pull them up just because you guys are both new. But basically, no racism, homophobia directed at guests or audience, no cutting off people when they're speaking, no personal attacks, limit the filibusters, and no attacking families. So I think we'll be okay. But other than that, I think we can get started with opening statements. So Keisha, I guess you are going to go first.
All right. So thank you, Politically Provoked, for having this discussion. And thanks to Taj for agreeing to discuss our different ideas. After all, if we can't grow if we don't challenge our own thought. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you guys very much. So let me just say from the gate that I understand the compassion and the want to fix things we see that are wrong in our government and society. And I believe we should take action where we see injustices, solvable problems, and holding our leaders accountable. At the same time, my Christian faith is what guides my worldview, and these ancient scriptures that have shaped many civilizations throughout time are as true today as they were then. When we look at BLM, equity, and critical race theory, at the root of these three topics is Marxism. Karl Marx believed in wealth redistribution. He believed that in order to create a more equitable society, we must take from the rich and give to the poor. The BLM founders described themselves as trained Marxists. The equity idea also comes from Karl Marx. We've moved from an equality of opportunity, which in my opinion is the most fair and just way to look at these circumstances. We've moved from that to equality of outcomes, which must take from one group and give to another. If I gave just two of you $100,000 each, by the next day, you both would be on two totally different and distinct paths that would determine different outcomes for the both of you. Sorry. 1 second, I lost my place. America thought that the war on Marxism and communism was over when the Berlin Wall came down and the Cold War was over. But the left has used clever language to dumb down, miseducate, and spread disinformation instead of the old tactics of bloody wars. It came roaring back in America, but this time language has done what bloody wars could never do. So I just have a few questions. Since we are not abstract human beings, but instead living, breathing, thinking, rational humans who make many decisions that change our daily outcomes for our own personal lives, how are we to expect a government that has no personal connection to our immediate circumstances, wants, needs, and desires to determine where we should end up without force or coercion? Excuse me. Number two, how can taking from one group against their will give to another group be just and fair? No matter how you dress this up, this is theft. And number three, my question is, who decides what's best for my life and my family? And finally, the hard truth of the matter is that no matter how many nice and well-meaning people there are in the world, we are all capable of heinous activities. We have the evidence of history to prove it. Injustice, racism, murder, and every manner of sin will never cease to exist on this side of heaven. Given this, giving power to a few to determine the well-being of the many is hardly the way to a more just society. So that is my opening.
All right, thank you. So Taj, you want to give your opening?
All right, mine is not going to be nearly as long-winded. Pretty much my opening statement is that BLM, the movement's awesome. Even the organization has seen positive outcomes happen due to that organization being in existence. They've helped pass multiple laws. They've helped educate and register voters. They've done a lot of great things for the country, and the work is still not completely finished. As far as things like equity, I think equity is also pretty great. I think the reason why people have issues with equity is they have questions and issues of how equity happens, and probably why people want equity. I hope to bring illumination to some of that during this debate. And also, I was just going to talk about critical race theory and how it's really not a big, bad boogeyman thing. I know it sounds scary, critical, oh no. But no, critical race theory is just literally just examining race in someone's position and power in society. It doesn't mean that your race determines everything in your life. It means that it's an important factor. And there's value in weighing it out. It's just basic sociology. And yeah, those are my points.
All right, so I guess we can just open up the floor for open discussion.
Okay. Well, my first thing, just going to the critical race theory. Critical race theory, the proponents of it, the makers of it, they themselves say that everything is racist. Every single thing is racist. There is no way to not live in America specifically and not be racist. It is literally, they say it's in the DNA of America. There's no way to separate race from any incident, any power, it is the oppressors and the oppressed. And so you can sort of look at how different people have studied it. And the easiest way I have found to understand it is sort of like a hierarchy. So you have the white cisgender male. Since he is on top, so they say because he is white and falls into those identity groups, he's at the top, and everyone else is that when you add more identities to that. So for instance, if you are a white woman, heterosexual, then you are still above. But then if you're a black woman, a black man, heterosexual, you're even less. So it's like a hierarchy of identity groups with the white cisgender male at the top. So it's baked into the cake that racism is in everything. And it's boiled down to your race, your sexual orientation, all of the identity groups.
Okay. Yeah, so that's an interesting point. All right, so critical race theory is once again just the examination of race and power and positioning in society. So what you brought up was intersectionality. That's not necessarily race. It's more just like gender. But yeah, intersectionality is important. It's important to, in order to be inclusive for everybody, we have to recognize people's positioning in societal structures. So say the glass ceiling's a real thing. So it's harder for a woman to get to the CEO level of a company. They have to work a little bit harder. There are certain meetings where like, we're say one person and another person are meeting up and they don't invite the woman. Say it's like meeting at a golf course or something like that, and the woman doesn't get invited. And there are just certain things that bar people from success. Not bar them all the way, but it makes it a little bit harder. Makes it a little bit of a tougher climb, as you will, to get success in society. It doesn't mean that you're doomed to live in the slums your entire life if you're a Black woman or if you're a gay Muslim or something like that. But it is important to recognize where disadvantages are in someone's societal position just based on things like how they're born or how they look, and things like that.
Well, I think if we said, okay, first of all, I don't understand why we have to look at someone's race, gender, or sexual orientation to determine what group they belong to or where they're supposed to be. I mean, that's literally the same thing that was done to Black people for a very long time. They said, okay, well, you got this color skin, so you belong in this group. And therefore your lot in life is X. And I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what gender you are or sexual orientation that you may have. It makes me no difference. I care about who you are as a person. And when I just sum you up by your race, your sex, your gender, your, all these exterior, characteristics, I don't even bother to get to know you as a person. I'm relegated to just looking at you by your skin color and judging you on that, or your sexual orientation, or your yada, yada, yada. Why do I have to be relegated to judging you by that, or being put in some category because you fall into certain social identity groups? It has no bearing on how you think. It has no bearing on your skills. It has no bearing on your intellectual capabilities. I mean, there's so much more to human beings than these superficial characteristics that people can just identify with their eyes. So I don't okay, so what? You're Black, and that's
Okay, yeah, I feel like I thought I illustrated my thoughts on things like critical race theory earlier, but I'll say it again. I'm not saying that you're doomed to a certain position in life. I'm just saying you're more likely to face barriers because of certain demographic places that you're in. So say you are a woman. I feel pretty friggin' comfortable walking anywhere I want at any time at nighttime. I can be 2 a.m. at Lake Eola, that's like a lake in Orlando, and I don't think there's any chance that someone's gonna try to attack and assault me sexually, right? That's not the same case with women. I really do feel like that's not the same thing. And I'm not saying that you're doomed to this. I'm not saying you're damned to be in danger at all times, but I'm just saying, in that given example, being a man puts me at an advantage because things like that won't happen to me. I have a buddy, and she actually was like followed by some random guy, be like, "Hey, Shorty, want some head? Hey, Shorty, want some head?" or something like that. That'll never happen to me. That'll never happen to me. That'll never happen to Todd. That could happen to you. Not saying that will. That could happen to Brittany. That could happen to you. Just because you're women, right? As a Black person, it's more likely that I will be stopped by police for some random BS versus a white person. I earnestly and genuinely believe that. I think that's the case for a lot of Black Americans, especially just due to like where they live, and due to certain law enforcement techniques and tactics. Like even the FBI came out and said that extremist groups have infiltrated law enforcement. The FBI came out and said, hey, law enforcement officers, they do racially profile. Like that's a real legit thing that even law enforcement backs up. So to say that people's race and people's gender identities don't matter in life, where we can just ignore it right now, de facto ignore it, I don't know if that's true. I think there needs to be serious surgical change into the country before it can be a post-gender or a post-racial society. I want that as much as everyone else, to be a post-racial society, but we can't do that de facto. Be like, oh, let's just ignore race, and have things just happen out de facto. There has to be like legitimate systemic and structural change in the country.
So with the situation with the women, yes, women are more targeted. Well, I won't say more because I don't know the factual data on that, but I would agree that yes, women are more likely to be taken advantage of by a man because we're not as strong as men. And so criminals would see a woman as a easier target. But I don't, that's not where critical race, I think where we might differ is your definition of critical race theory and like the technical definition of critical race theory and how and what they're teaching in schools and what they're implementing with laws.
What are they teaching in schools and implementing with laws?
I'm sorry?
What are they teaching in schools and implementing with laws? They're
teaching that if you are white, you are automatically an oppressor. If you are Black, you are automatically oppressed. If you ascribe to certain identity groups, you automatically fall into that hierarchy. But if you're white and male at the top, you're automatically an oppressor. Doesn't matter anything else. That's what they're teaching.
Okay, I've taken classes where we've gone over things like critical race theory. That's not what was taught in those classes. Are you sure these aren't just like some random far off straw man type classes, like some random like the Coca-Cola corporate class that was just done for, I don't even know why they did that. But that's not what they're teaching in schools and high schools and stuff. Like if they teach things like privilege and stuff like that, like sure, yeah. Like, do you have any issue with just like learning about basic privilege structures? And how
yes, I do. I have a huge problem with that because But
how do we fix certain problems without learning about them?
Well, I'll say this: you cannot you can't judge groups. No group is a monolith. So the moment you start judging a group and sticking people into these categories, you are removing from them individuality. So just like how you were talking about cops, you're not a criminal, I'm not a criminal. So your whole argument is that because you're Black, because you fit into this social construction of Black person, then you're saying that their bias is judging you on that external characteristic. That is exactly my point. You should not be judged by that external characteristic. Right. So when schools start teaching, hold on, let me just finish.
Oh, sorry about that.
When schools start teaching, if you are white, you belong in this, and you default to racist. If you are Black, you default to oppressed. That is racism. That is not going to, you can't fix racism with more racism. And that's what they're teaching. They're saying
not racism.
If I judge you by a external characteristic, especially, just you and I, if someone judges you being Black, and especially if it's a negative judgment and they hold that negative judgment against you, that's not racism.
That's racism. When you explain teaching people that their race might determine certain societal positionings, that's not racism. So let's scale this back, right? Let's say it's like 1940. It's the Jim Crow era in the United States. Would it be racist for me to say, okay, you're more likely to be lynched if you're Black? Would that be racist if I said that?
I don't know. It depends on what part of the country. It depends on a lot of factors.
Say we're in Jacksonville. Say we're in Jacksonville, Florida. A lot of bad things happen in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, lynching, no, but harassed.
You don't think black people were more likely to be lynched during the 1940s in Jacksonville, Florida?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
There wasn't a ton of lynching in Jacksonville, just as
okay.
A whole,
so for the lynchings out there, did it happen to white people and black people equally? Is that what you're saying?
No, but there were certainly white folks that hung right alongside black folks.
Was it the same rates?
I'm sorry?
Do you think it was the same rates? Like per capita?
I don't think it was the same rates.
So is it wrong? Is it racist to acknowledge that black people got hung more in the Jim Crow South than white people in any other ethnicity?
Okay, let me say this.
I'm just because
let me just
let me finish your sentence too.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Let me just get this out of the way. Racism exists.
Right.
Black people were slaves. Black people had a lot of hardships in America. Black people were more likely to be hung, harassed, killed in the early beginnings of this country, all the way up until around I would say like the 20s, around the 20s. A lot of those things, people, as generations went on, a lot of, especially the lynchings and stuff, as time went on, these things were less common in society. Did they exist? Absolutely. Were they more likely to happen to black people? Yes. So, okay.
So all right. So you're acknowledging that. You said earlier it was racist to acknowledge positionings of certain races in society. Like, say certain bad things were to happen to certain minorities, then it's racist to acknowledge that. I just want to acknowledge it, But you called it racist a little bit earlier, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm saying it's racist today to say to someone that if
how's it racist today,
white,
but not racist during the 1960s? I use lynchings as an example back then. I can use something else like incarceration today.
You're not. Just let me finish. If today we're going to say that a white person or anybody who is judged purely on their skin color, and we are to act in a negative way or lift anybody up because of their skin color, that is racism. I don't care what part of the century you're in. If you judge somebody by the color of their skin and you're acting upon that judgment, that is racism. It's racist. The whole, judging people by the content of their character. Remember that whole thing? The reason why that was so important was because people weren't doing that. They weren't looking at character. They were looking at your skin color. And if we are black and we're pointing to white, or if you're white, black, or whoever, and if you're pointing to one group of people, any group of people, and saying that you have to be uplifted or oppressed because of an external characteristic, that is racism.
Okay. So with that logic, with you saying that uplifting a certain group in society is racism, would you, with that same logic, say that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is also racist because it positively affected black people more than it positively affected white people?
Do you know what the Civil Rights Act did?
Yeah, didn't it get rid of separate but equal? Does that positively affect black people more than it positively affects white people?
Taj, your definitions are very odd. Okay, we had the law was that you could discriminate. So we had to remove that law to make everyone so everyone would not legally be able to do that.
But discriminate who though?
I'm sorry?
Discriminate against who? Whom, rather?
It made it so that no one could discriminate against anyone.
Okay, but did it positively affect Black people more or white people more, or was it the same?
Yes, it positively affected Black people because we were the ones in the law. We were the ones that were legally being held back from the American opportunities.
Okay, so if we did something like improve the budgeting for schools in lower income areas, or provided more affordable housing in lower income areas, and those lower income areas are mostly Black people, are those laws racist in that way, or is it just because it's like de facto like improving the lives of people in that area?
I mean, I don't know. I don't like when people use these relative terms like affordable. Affordable to who? I mean, if you make $50,000 a year and I make $25,000 a year, what you can afford is totally different from what I can afford.
Right,
so affordable housing is that is not
affordable housing is how. Sorry, I'm doing this again. I'm sorry. All right, my apologies. It was your turn to talk. Okay, my apologies.
That's okay. But when you talk about affordable, that's a very relative term. Affordable, you can't just say affordable housing and then make some law and roll it out and say, okay, everybody here's affordable. That is very I don't know what that means. I don't know what the definition of affordable housing is.
Okay.
And when it comes to housing, most of when you allow prices to be set by the market, it will drive you will inevitably get to cheaper, lower cost. I don't know if it's affordable to whomever, but it will be lower cost when you let the market regulate itself. Now, I'm not saying that there should be zero regulations, but I'm saying that if you are putting all of these regulations on getting wood or brick or whatever, it's going to drive the price up. But when you remove those barriers for people to go into these businesses and get the supplies and all the things that they need, it drives the price down. Just like flat screen TVs. When they first came out, it was short supply, high demand, prices were up. The more supply we had, the prices came down. I mean, it's an economic thing. It's not you can't make a law and just expect for people to not adjust, because like I said in my opening statement, we are living, breathing, thinking, rational people. I don't care how many laws you put on the books. If it doesn't benefit me and my family, I'm going to move myself or take my interests somewhere else. So you can't just make up a law and just expect for people to just, automatically not adjust.
Okay. Yeah. So you brought up a few things. You did this really good rhetorical thing where you put like a bunch of different examples. Like you'll like drop like 2 paragraphs and it's like kind of tough for me to like keep up with all of them. I'll try to answer like the biggest bullet points. That's really good.
I'll slow down so you can keep up.
Thank you. All right. So for affordable housing is literally just housing that's more affordable for everybody in a given population. So it's calculated by a few different things like median incomes and things like that in a given area. But it's literally housing that's meant to be affordable for people that can't afford it. We live in a state with Disney, right? That's a great thing that benefits our state a bunch. But a lot of the workers at Disney make so little that they sleep in their cars. I think that's absurd. I think of more affordable housing than the people that work at Disney that are there at 12 p.m. on a Tuesday for the field trips and stuff. So they're not college students, they're actual adults, can afford apartments where they don't have to sleep in their car and steal samples out of Publix when they're hungry. I don't think they're doing that, but that's just kind of like a comedic example. So that's pretty much what affordable housing, what I mean by that. I mean housing that's affordable. And with affordable housing, you made up a good point about profit motives, right? It's really interesting when people bring up profit motives like the market will drive cheaper housing. I think that's more of a myth than truth, unfortunately. I really wish that were the case, where laissez-faire take care of that. Let me ask you a question, Keisha. Would you rather rent out a house that you make and charge $700 rent for, or rent out a house and charge $2,000 rent for? One of those two will bring more profit to you, so you're incentivized for that $2,000 house versus that $700 house.
You don't understand how that works. Have you ever owned a home?
No, I don't see how that's necessarily relevant.
It's very relevant, and here is why. Because when you own a home, it matters of how much money you put down, because that affects what your mortgage will be. And this goes to rental property, and if this is your primary residence. So if you take out a mortgage,
right,
and you have homeowners insurance, and you have insurance, and you have property taxes, all of that goes on top of your mortgage. All of that goes into the cost of what your monthly mortgage will be. You cannot rent, or no one would rent out a place if their mortgage was $2,000. How are they going to rent it for $700? So
profit wise. Say it's the same house.
You can't, but you have to determine what your costs are going to be before you even decide what you can rent it out for.
Right.
So that is, again, it's a relative.
Yeah, let's just follow the hypothetical for a little bit. We'll be off this train real soon. I promise. We'll get off this train soon. We'll move to a different buggy in there. And that's, well, I guess it's the same train, but a different cart in that train. Neither here nor there. But anyway, say all right, so expanding on this hypothetical, say it is $600 for a mortgage, so you make $100 profit by charging $700 rent. Or by charging $2,000, which you can because your neighbors also charge around $2,000 for their rent. You can make way more. I think the sensible homeowner, the sensible landlord, would make it $2,000 to make it more equal to the neighbors and more alongside the market. When we see this with neighborhoods, when with things like gentrification, where it'll be like a lower income neighborhood where the landlords over there will make, say, like X amount of dollars, like a lower X. And then like more development comes in that area, and then property prices go up. So people make more money off of those houses. And then the lower income residents still make the same amount of money that they pay for rent, but they have to put more of what they make each month on rent. So they get pushed out of those neighborhoods. I hope I explained that correctly. I think I stuttered a few times. People as homeowners and as landlords are incentivized to charge more, is what I'm saying. They have to it would literally be the sky's the limit if people could pay it, but they have to charge, one, what people can pay, and two, like what people are kind of forced to pay. No one's charging $200 rent anymore. No one's charging $500 rent anymore on an apartment. They did like 10, 20 years ago. That's a thing in the past. And the reason why apartments can charge this is not only because their costs are higher, but because people can pay more and they have to pay more to live in certain areas. That's why the cost of housing in Orlando is so high. It's because the market's just like that. All right, and with the flat screen TV example that you brought up, all right, so the reason why flat screen TV prices went down compared to when they first came, and smart TVs too, demand changed, competition changed, and there was cheaper manufacturing. That all influenced the price to go down. Plus, it's not as high value anymore. People can watch TV on their phones. People can watch TV on their laptops, like this bad boy right here. These things also influence markets and prices on things. So I'm saying, if we had government-run affordable housing, then that would force a lot of landlords, a lot of apartment rental companies to drop their prices to compete with those affordable places.
You know, it's interesting, especially with you being a Black person, that you are so cool with the government forcing stuff on you. I mean, that's a really odd take. That would have to be the market considering response. The history of Black people and force in America. I mean, your trust of the government is really impressive. But
why are you latching onto the force thing?
Because that's exactly what you would have to do. You have to force business owners you can't just set up. You have to. What you're talking about is price setting. when you can't just arbitrarily make up a price and say, this cup is gonna, I demand for every business to charge $20 for this cup. They don't know your manufacturer costs. They don't know all of the things that goes into making your product. It's not a matter of just the government coming in and making up a price. That is actually what drives prices higher. That is
How would
not
that drive
what
prices higher in that example?
It drives prices higher in most all examples, because the government comes in when you set a price to something and tell a business owner that they have to sell it at that price. You said yourself you're a capitalist. What do you sell?
What do I sell?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in capitalism itself.
Okay, well, let's just say
I like a mixed economy where the government steps in and does certain things for the betterment of society. But I'm a capitalist, as in, like, I'm not literally just not a socialist.
Well, when the government comes in and starts setting prices on things that they don't make, the government doesn't make anything. They don't have any interest in making sure that the consumer is better off. They're just regulating, they're just regulating those different industries and causing them to try to adjust, because that's what businesses will do. At the end of the day, when the government starts coming in and forcing minimum wage or any type of price setting, a person is going to adjust. A business owner, I don't care what it is, you're going to adjust because you are a rational thinking, breathing human. You're not abstract where you're just gonna be stuck in whatever the government tells you to do.
And that's the benefit of affordable housing.
But when you say affordable, like I said, it's going to be affordable to who? Because some people may not want to live in this neighborhood. Some people,
yes, that's the point. Yeah,
you are missing it when you have the choice to work where you want to work, the choice to get educated how you want to get educated, the choice to grow in whatever skill you want to, so you can determine what type of money you're trying to make, so you can determine what neighborhood you want. These are the steps in the process of thinking when you're thinking about going to school, getting married, having children. You're thinking about, okay, how am I going to pay for this? Where do I want my kids to go to school? What type of neighborhood do I want them to be raised in? You're going to consider all of those things and you will make your own choices. We don't need the government to come in and tell us what we can and cannot do with our families. They have no clue on the different decisions that we will want to make. But if they set the rules, they're constrained, they're locked into that law or those rules, and that person is unable to move outside of those things, because you're forcing them into something that they may not want to be in. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, all right. So when we're talking about forcing people into certain things, with housing, people are forced into certain things. Your options are limited. Say you are someone that works at Disney and makes $10 an hour. You can't choose that many places to move into. You don't have that much economic freedom where you can be like, I don't like this neighborhood, I'm just gonna move. You people are locked into these things sometimes, and I feel like giving people the option empowers them to move to better neighborhoods if they feel fit, as they see fit, rather. Say you have kids and you want to move to a better neighborhood with a better school district, you can do that if you have affordable housings in that school district. Say you're in a domestic domestic dispute inside your own household, you can move out if you have an affordable place you can move to. Certain people are stuck into things like bad domestic violence situations, bad neighborhoods, living with family where they just can't get out because their options for housing are just so limited, or maybe they don't even have options for housing because they're just so low income. This removes. All right, so as I see it, the way you're explaining it right now, or how you're explaining it and how I'm understanding it, there's going to be forced either way. Either poor people are going to be forced into bad living situations or places that they might not feel exactly comfortable in, where they can't thrive and provide to society the way that they fully can if they had a better living situation. Or we kind of force homeowners and landlords to adjust their prices by having suitable competition. I'm not saying free housing. It doesn't have to be free housing. It can just be more affordable housing for people with lower income. That way there's more competition and people will adjust to that competition. Sometimes societies need that. It's not all laissez-faire.
Well, it really, affordable, like I said, is very relative. So that's number one. And you make it sound like when somebody, especially most people, and depending on where you live, $10, $12, $15 an hour might be in the South. You know, wages aren't super, you know, we're not at the top. If you try to compare like what people make in, you know, Callahan, Florida, which is like a teeny small town, compared to like New York, it's going to be totally different. That's number one. And you're making it like that let's just take the Disney World workers. You're making it like they're stuck in that job forever, in perpetuity. Like maybe they're just, I have a friend, and I know this is an anecdotal story, but she has a degree in accounting. She owns a home. She has a very good job. She's getting married, but she works at Publix part-time because she wants the extra cash. That she has worked there since she was like a teenager. She likes having the extra money in her pocket. That is her prerogative. But someone like you would see like that on a piece of paper and say, oh my God, why is she working 2 jobs? She's you know, why does she have to work 2 jobs in America? She doesn't need to, you know, this is
no, if people want the extra cash and working 2 jobs, and more power to them. I've worked multiple jobs multiple times in my life.
That idea, it's like maybe that kid wants to work at Disney World. Maybe they're working Disney World and they're waitressing down the street so they can better set up their own life. We don't know. This is my point. We don't know, and the government damn sure doesn't know what the heck that individual person wants to do with their life. If they choose to, all the government can do is provide access to the opportunities. I don't need anybody to come in and try to tell me or you, or especially anybody in my house, try to tell me or anyone here what we can and cannot do to figure out our own lot in life. My oldest daughter, she's already making money. She's already in that mindset because of the parents that she comes from. We are instilling certain things in her to make her start thinking about certain things so she doesn't have to, so she can better set herself up. So these kids, they might be making $10 now, but who knows? Maybe they're starting a social media company in their garage. It's plenty of kids that do these kinds of things.
But Keisha,
in the early stages of their life.
A lot of these people aren't kids. When it's 2 p.m. on a Tuesday at Disney, it's not going to be a high schooler that's working. It's going to be an adult. It's going to be someone that's over the age of 18, more than likely, right? So I feel like we're going a little bit off track. The majority of the workforce that make minimum wage are adults. It's not majority high schooler. And when we say things like we just don't know, we do know. That's not true. You're saying that's not true?
That is not true.
The majority of full-time minimum wage workers are not adults, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
An adult is 18 and up.
18, I believe it's from 16 to 25. That's the range. And the majority.
Okay, so that's the majority of between the ages of 16 and 25, that's the majority of that is adults, right? 16 is 16, 17. The only 2 ages are children. 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 are all adults.
The majority of them are not over 18.
But you said 16 to 25.
I'm saying that's the range of people but the majority of that range, the majority of people in that range are on the lower end, 16, part-time.
No, I mean full-time minimum wage.
Okay. So like, again, my friend would fall into that category and she's 30 something.
Okay, so she's not 16 or 17.
But I'm just saying, if you, like I said, if you saw her on paper, you would deem her as she's, I just said this. Oh
No,
my God.
I respect the hustle. They give you stock options at Publix.
You know, what?
No, I respect that. If you work 2 jobs, that's great. More power to you. Get that supplemental income.
But that's what I'm saying. You're looking at this. You don't know the individual circumstances of those people. So you look
data,
at them
though.
on paper.
I don't know data like intimately, but with just broad perusals of data, you can see certain things, like how Orlando is in a worse position as far as affordable housing goes than San Francisco. We're number 1 for worst affordable housing in Orlando. And where do Disney workers live? Kissimmee and Orlando. That's where they live for the most part. Some people drive from like Cocoa and stuff, but for the most part, they're out in the Orlando area. The housing situation in Orlando is not good. The pay that Disney gives them does not match that. How about we just make the housing market a little bit more affordable by bringing, literally, there's not enough houses for people at this point. Like, with the way that the housing market's set up, there are bound to be people that are homeless. We can fix homelessness by making more affordable housing. Like, that's a better life for everybody, not just that person that's homeless that works at Disney or works at Universal or works at Planet Fitness, for all I care. Like, it makes things better for us as well. It means like there's less people on the street, literally with affordable housing. There's less crime. People are in better positions where they can contribute to society. Maybe the reason that someone can't work 2 jobs is because they don't have the transportation. There's literally just like not enough time in a day to move from working full-time at one place to a part-time gig somewhere else. There's literally just not enough time in their day. I think eliminating the percentage of rent that people pay, the percentage of their income people pay on rent, to let people have the freedom to do certain things, like, helps them out a lot. It helps out society a bunch. Is my power going down? What's going on with that? And we'll put everybody in a better spot, is what I'm saying. I might have to transfer from the computer to the phone, if that's all right, Brittany.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine if you have to. I told you, the StreamYard will suck the battery life out of you. So
yeah. I'm good. I'm at 38 right now, but I should probably prep up just in case.
Yeah. So, and then we're gonna about like 10 more minutes, and then we'll hop into the Q&A portion.
Okay.
And you guys,
we're mostly talking about equity so far. I like this, and CRT a little bit. Do you want to go on to BLM, like the movement of the organization?
Not BLM.
Okay. Yeah. One quick thing about, I think it was gosh, what's that name? That lady named Patrice something, one of the founders of BLM. Yes, thank you. When she said, I think that was her that said this quote. She's kind of a clout chaser, honestly. When she said this quote of like, we're trained Marxists, I think that quote gets taken out of context quite a bit. And also, Patrice is just not being factual. Saying that something's a Marxist organization can either mean they follow Marxist ideologies, or they're literally just Marxists and there's no real hierarchy. I think that when she says they're trained Marxists, they're meaning the latter term of there being no hierarchy. That's just simply not true. There's a clear hierarchy in BLM. I think a Marxist organization would be like maybe my YouTube channel, where it's just me and 3 other guys. There's no clear leader. There's no true hierarchy in that channel. That's Marxist, in my opinion. That's communist, where there's no class in between one another, in my opinion. BLM definitely has, as an organization, has that hierarchical structure that is certainly not Marxist. But that's not here nor there. I just want to put that little tidbit out there. I don't think anyone cares about that. You don't care about that?
I mean,
can you pretend to care, please? Like,
I take her at her word when she says she's a trained Marxist. The fact that she said she's trained when someone is trained in something, you are skilled. I take her at her word in saying that she is trained in that.
But what does that mean?
Worldview. That means
worldview.
Yes,
how do you train a worldview? Can someone be a trained capitalist? Are we trained capitalists?
Yes, you can be a trained. That is it. That is you have capitalist leaning economists. You have socialist leaning. You can be trained.
I think you might have changed my outlook on that. Okay, Cool.
Well, hey, praise the Lord. That's good.
You can be trained capitalist.
I believe so. Anything that you study, you can and you take the time to learn about it and you skill up on it, you become trained. And she says she's a trained Marxist, which I take her at her word, and she believes in wealth distribution. She believes in demanding certain things from the government. She believes in, you know, no police. I mean, all of these. She believes in no family. She doesn't believe. I mean, they believe.
Wait. A lot of people say the no family thing. Can you expand on that?
So she doesn't believe in the nuclear family, or the organization does not believe in the nuclear family, meaning a man, a woman, and children. They don't believe in that.
I think the wording's a little bit different than that. It's not saying abolish nuclear family. I believe their wording was dismantle the requirements for nuclear family.
No, it wasn't the requirements. It was dismantle that structure.
I'm pretty sure it's dismantle the requirement of a nuclear family. I am a trained BLMer because I've studied that. Yeah, you can look it up if you want, but it's going to say dismantle the requirement of a nuclear family. By saying that, it means that they legitimately want to dismantle the advantages that a child will have by being a nuclear family, and just kind of focus more on community rearing. So say like a child doesn't have a mom or a dad, or they're living with their grandparents or something like that, and it's no longer technically a nuclear family. There are certain advantages that a child in a nuclear family will have, that a child that's not a nuclear family won't have. But it's not that child's fault, right? Is it that child's fault that they're not in a nuclear family? I don't think so. They're literally born into it, right? So doing things like kind of easing the burden of the double job lifestyle of having a 9-to-5, the full-time work, as well as being a full-time parent, where you're just the only parent. That'll make things better for the child as well as the parent in that situation. I'm completely fine with that. Say like someone is a single mom and they have 2 kids, right? They gotta take one to piano recital, one to soccer practice. That's a tough schedule to juggle while also working full-time, supporting that family, being that breadwinner. Like dismantling the burden of that sounds like a really great thing in my opinion. I'm not saying get rid of the nuclear family. I was raised in a nuclear family. I enjoy my nuclear. Well, it's not nuclear anymore. I've been moved out. But as a child, I enjoyed being raised in a nuclear family. But I acknowledge that at the same time, certain families don't have that advantage. And it is 100%, 1,000% an advantage and a privilege to be in a nuclear family. So dismantling that privilege just a tad bit to make it easier on the lives of people that aren't in those nuclear families seems completely fine. I don't think anyone should have an issue with that.
I have a problem with anyone trying to tell me how to raise my children, and especially it would be one thing.
They're not saying that. They're saying dismantling. That's more of like a governmental thing. That's more of like
exactly. That is exactly where I was going. That is exactly the problem. If she just had this opinion by herself, like, you know what, I don't think that there should be nuclear families, and she just blogged about it. No, homegirl is out here stomping in the streets, tearing things up to demand this from the government.
That's better for society. So this is
not just some.
And also, I don't think she was doing that. That's kind of an odd straw man to jump in there, throw in there.
Their whole basis has evolved from police shootings and killings to this entire narrative. This is from the inception to what they are now. They believe in dismantling, which means to tear apart. When you dismantle
the
something,
requirement,
you tear it down.
The requirement does not mean dismantling the thing.
What is she saying? I'm trying to find the whole statement. I can't see.
Say like if I dismantled the requirement for having your own vehicle in a city that's kind of like more car based, that doesn't mean I'm anti-car. Like just like
if you want to dismantle it, or
dismantling the requirement.
If you want to dismantle it,
dismantling the requirement does not mean dismantling the thing.
We disrupt. I'm trying to find
disrupt the requirement.
No,
I thought this it was dismantle the requirement.
Hold on, let's see.
Is it from the Movement for Black Lives site, or where you pulling this from?
This is the What We Believe page that was screenshotted. I have it because I knew, I was like, they're going to take this down.
Yeah, they did take it down.
They did take it
months
down.
Ago.
They sure did.
They did.
I really wish they didn't. I really wish they were less pretentious with their language.
But here's my point. Here's my point. If she was just a person who had an idea and she wasn't trying to push this on the larger society, everyone else, have your idea, blog about it, do a podcast. But when you start taking this idea to the government and trying to make that be trying to influence policy, that is a problem, because you cannot even have a successful society if you don't have strong families. So it's a total, that's the Marxist idea. It is tearing down of the
I don't think that has anything to do with Marxism.
It is this is what you have to understand, what Marxism and what Gramsci and all of these people wrote about. Yes, you have to understand who these people are and what they wrote about in order for you to see the connection with BLM. And that's why a lot of people don't see the connection with Marxism and BLM, because they don't even understand where this stuff comes from. They have no clue of what Karl Marx was trying to do and what Gramsci was trying to do. And all of these people who came up with these ideologies.
Okay. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't think Marx I've never read the Communist Manifesto. I'm not a communist. And I'm not going to try to defend socialism or communism, because that's literally just not my belief. But I don't think Marx said anything about nuclear families in there.
Really?
Yeah, but also I'm literally saying that dismantling the requirement, you got to agree with me on this. Dismantling the requirement for something does not mean destroying that thing or dismantling that thing. If I live in, say, Orlando, Florida, or Jacksonville, or Houston, Texas, where you need a car to get to point A and B, and if you're relying on public transit, you're screwed. If I said dismantle the requirement for a car in a place like Orlando, or in a place like Jacksonville or Houston, Texas, by having better public transportation, I'm not saying that I'm abolishing cars forever. I'm just dismantling the requirement for it, because it turns into a legitimate requirement when people are significantly disadvantaged by not having those things. I think children are significantly disadvantaged in this society by not being in a nuclear family. And I think it's an impossible and naive standard to have every family in a nuclear family. I mean, to have every child in a nuclear family, rather. Parents die, like parents separate and divorce each other. Parents get locked up and arrested. Parents just simply aren't there, where kids don't even know who their parents are, and that shouldn't be something that we punish children for. When we having that as a requirement, where it's legitimately a privilege to be in a nuclear family, that's punishing the kids that aren't in those nuclear families. They're born into it, literally born into it. I didn't choose to be in a nuclear family. Your kids didn't choose to be in a nuclear family. It was something they were born into. Why are we punishing them? Making their lives at school harder, making their extracurricular lives harder, making their self-esteem a little bit worse because of stuff like that, I feel like that's a bad way to set up the next generation. I think dismantling the requirement for those things, dismantling the requirement, not dismantling those things. Nuclear families are beautiful things. I hope to be the head of a nuclear family one day. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it does become wrong when we make it a de facto privilege to be in one.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with what I said. There's nothing anti-Christian with what I said. There's nothing anti-capitalist with what I said.
Listen, when it seems like your intent is,
I'm making
you're like, okay, intent, you can't, just because you intend for something to happen, if you start a chain of reaction, your intent may be X, but if you get to Y and that was not your intent, you still screwed the whole thing up. I can appreciate your intent that,
but
you want kids to not suffer, but what, I'm just curious, instead of if that's what she meant, if that's what she meant, why not say we want and need strong nuclear families? Why not say that? Because
that wasn't her intent, or that wasn't her message. Her message was to dismantle the requirement for it.
Exactly, but you're
that
saying,
as something that's a privilege that disaffects people if they're not a part of that privilege.
Let me just say that you're saying, well, I don't think that was what she meant, and I don't really see anything wrong with dismantle. Basically, like, she kind of just used the wrong word. These people are very intentional. They know exactly what they're doing. I am not, these people, she's not stupid. She knows exactly what she's doing. I'm in marketing. Words, language, messages are extremely powerful.
Right.
They sat down and they crafted those messages intentionally. They were trying to portray a certain message. It wasn't like, I'm just going to type up this thing. No, it wasn't. I guarantee you she didn't do that. It was well thought out. It was well planned out, and it was intentional in what she was trying to say. I believe she said exactly what she meant.
Right.
Dismantle nuclear families, whether the structure, whether the requirement, whatever. Even if we need a requirement of, we shouldn't have a law to say you have to have a nuclear family, but we should certainly, it is more beneficial to incentivize people to be geared toward a nuclear family than against one. Their ideology is against a nuclear family. That does not improve society. The kids are going to be worse off. They're not going to be better off. So all of the
kids are worse off now by not being in a nuclear family.
What you just said.
What happens to a kid and their parent when their dad dies or their mom dies and there's just one parent in that household?
You are talking about, you want me to base ideas on anomalies. That is not what happens to most kids. They're
at a disadvantage compared to a kid with two parents.
I'm sorry?
They're at a significant disadvantage. And you agree with me on this, that kids with one parent in the household are at a significant disadvantage than kids with two parents in the household. What I'm trying to do is make it easier on the lives of the parent and the children in those households of just one parent by dismantling the requirement. It becomes a requirement when life is harder for you if you don't fit that one thing. A one parent household doesn't fit the nuclear family, right? That's not the nuclear family. But if we dismantled the requirement where their lives are less hard because they're just for not being a nuclear family, then there's no problem with that. Churches do it all the time.
Okay, listen. I think you're younger than me. Mm-hmm. I think you're younger than me. And I don't mean this. I don't mean any shade. I really don't. But you're utopian, we need to, life is hard. I don't know how old you are, but life is hard, boo.
I never said life wasn't hard. I'm just saying, why does it have to be
we
as
just
hard?
Need to make it less hard. I don't care what.
Why? What's wrong with making life less hard?
Because here's the thing.
We are where we are because people in front of us made life less hard.
Gosh,
when people made electricity that powers this laptop, powers everything in your room and your house, when people made running water through pipes, that is life being made less hard and less difficult. There's nothing wrong with making life easier for the generation after us. That's what I want. That's what you want. I don't even know you like that, but that's what you want.
We're gonna let Keisha do it, and then we're gonna start to wrap this up and get to Q&A. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What I'm saying is, the conveniences of phones and computers and cars and all those things, fantastic. However, when you give these things to kids or people in abundance, you can ruin them. There is a point where you can go too far. There is a point where you have where kids especially have too much and they don't value hard work. They don't value tough times. Frederick Douglass said, without struggle, no, Taj, put your hand down because I'm going to speak right now.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Without struggle, there is no progress. We hear these cliches and we're just like, oh yeah, we say them, but that's a real statement. Because when we say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that is true, because what you learn during the journey, what you gain in the struggle, what you can pass on is pertinent to living a life that can not only benefit you, but it benefits your children, so they can see that struggle. Okay, not only did mommy and daddy, they struggled here, but oh my gosh, they overcame it. That teaches you far more than a doggone having a cell phone and all of this other foolishness ever will. Struggle is a pertinent part of success. Failure is a pertinent part of success. All of you can't just remove hardships from life and expect to get the same type of quality of life that you do when we see kids that have never had to work for anything. Typically, these are some of the most pains in the what kind of kids that we see, because a lot of times what we call privileged kids with money, and that has nothing to do with color, but privileged kids, when they get out into the world, they are unprepared because they've never had to struggle with anything. They've never had to really work for anything. They've never had to overcome anything. So they are more of a burden on society than they are an asset. And that is just a pertinent thing in growing up. Struggle is necessary. So that's my end, and I'm ready for questions.
I just have two.
Yeah,
is it okay, Brittany, if I ask?
Yeah, and then we will also, after Q&A, we will have closing statements. So
okay.
Yeah, say what you want to say, and then we'll get to Q&A.
Yeah. Cut me off after 30 seconds. All right. So with that argument right there, she's saying it seems like she was saying that growing up with struggle will make a better person. So do you think wheelchair people in wheelchairs are spoiled because they have wheelchair ramps? Like, are kids of single parents households, where we can both acknowledge where their lives are harder than if they had two parents with them, are they better off because they had a single parent and they had to struggle a little bit more? Are poor kids that are like welfare children, right? Are they better off because they had struggle more than me as a kid, or more than your kids right now? Are they better off in the long run? Like, I don't think you're saying that. So this notion of like life is too easy for people, I feel like that's kind of like a backwards notion. We're trying to make life like easier for people. Like, yeah, life is hard. When public transit gets better for people, when there are better steps to alleviate poverty in homes and make housing better, life will still be hard. People still have to work hard. But you know what? They don't have to worry about things like housing. They don't have to worry about when they're going to see their parents next, like, or less likely to do that. Single mothers don't have to worry about, how am I going to drive to this piano recital and also drive my other kid to karate lessons? Like, life will still be hard. That, like, it's really funny because sometimes, like, we have this giant specter and this giant idea of what struggle is, living like a hard, grizzled life. But that's not how we are, and that's not how people are going to be in 100 years if we develop properly. And that's okay. That's growth. That's growth as a society and growth as human beings.
All right. So let's get to some Q&A. So we got a bunch of them. All right. So from Lyceum Podcast to Taj, could Patrisse Cullors' 4 mansions be any kind of indicator of manipulation, coercion, or hustle going on?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I don't know about manipulation and coercion, but there's definitely like a certain hustle to BLM. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the organization's usage of funds. I don't think they distribute it properly to smaller chapters. I know they're holding it for future political endeavors, which I'm completely fine with. No, I'm fine with that. Like, last year was their biggest fundraising year ever. I don't think they're going to have a better fundraising year this year or any other year in the near future, and that's completely fine. If they're using that as like a nest egg for 2024, I'm cool with that. I'm completely fine with that. 2022, whatever, that's fine. And yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of their use of funds. But Patrisse Cullors is right now an ideologue, I would say. Is it a hustle to have people pay you for speaking engagements? Is Tony Robbins a hustler because they're like being paid a lot of money? Is TD Jakes a hustler? I don't know. Is TD Jakes popular among conservatives anymore? Is TD Jakes a hustler because he's not going to come out and give a sermon for free? You know that, right? Are they a hustler because of that? So that's kind of strange that we have this label applied to Patrice from BLM, but not to other people as well. Why not just keep the same standards if we're going to do that? I don't think Donald Trump will come and give a speech to the villages for free at this point. I don't think past presidents will like do that. They get paid for their speaking engagements. Like Trump didn't come out to CPAC for free. I can tell you that right now. That wasn't for free, y'all. But I'm not calling him a hustler for that particular reason. There are other reasons why I think he's a hustler, but that's not.
Bro, he saved Orlando for you, man. He saved Orlando.
Saved Orlando, man.
Okay, so
I got TikTok famous from him being there. So,
so from Big Poopy Fart Face to Keisha, what did Marx say about the nuclear family? Considering that the concept originated in the nuclear age, 100 years later, was he a time traveler?
No, he wasn't a time traveler. His ideas are just very pervasive today. That's the thing. So it says Marxists argue that. I'm sorry. Hold on. I wanted to get his actual. It says Marxist. I wanted to see if I could find. I'm sorry. I should have had this pulled up.
No, you're fine.
It says Marx declared in his famous manifesto, they openly declared that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at a communistic revolution. Let's see. The family. Marx admits that destroying the family is a thorny topic, even for revolutionaries. Abolition of the family, even the most radical flare-up at this infamous proposal of the communists, he writes. Let's see. It says, this is a quote, on what foundation is the present family, the bourgeoisie family based? On capital, on private gain? In its completely developed form, this family exists only among the bourgeoisie, he writes. So the point is that nuclear family, that's only for the bourgeoisie. That's not even, and that's exactly what Patrice is talking about. I don't care what, that's not a class thing. Everybody is better off if they have a nuclear family. So he's trying to make it about, oh, that's a privilege. Exactly what you said. You're talking exactly like a Marxist and you don't even know it. He's saying that is a privilege for you to grow up in a nuclear family. Not, the lower class people, they don't have those privileges. So you're literally you're saying exactly what Karl Marx would say. We don't need the requirement. We need to tear down that structure because, who needs that? That's for the privileged, the bourgeoisie, not the proletariat. That is part of Marxism. That is why when you hear these phrases, you have to know, okay, that's where this person is coming from. And that can help you navigate if that's something that you really want to be caping for. I don't think it's good for, especially the state of Black families today in America. That is not something that we need to have. We don't need to dismantle any nuclear family. We need to be incentivizing and promoting and uplifting the idea of nuclear families. So that is he was very against nuclear families, thought it was for the bourgeoisie and wanted to tear that structure down. So thank you, Big Poopy Fart Face.
Okay. All right, from Lyceum Podcast, he says to Taj, are you a Christian? If no, would you like to know about your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Okay,
Yeah, I'm a Christian. I was born and raised in a church.
Okay. Back to big poopy fart face. Madison stated that the role of government needs to be to protect the minority of the opulent against the tyranny of the majority. Can systemic inequality and democracy coexist?
That's an interesting question.
Who's that for?
I'm maybe you, but if you guys both want to answer, you can.
Can systemic inequality and democracy coexist? I don't believe that full equality, especially in outcomes, can happen. You can't. Just like I said in my opening statement, if I gave both of you $100,000, the very next moment of what you decide to do, like you guys veer off in your own individual directions. So yes, you got an equal amount of money, but where you will end up, Taj might invest the whole thing and blow up, and Brittany might blow it. I don't know. But you're going to go into totally different directions, and so I don't think we can ever have we won't ever have equality in that way, but we can have equality of opportunities. And America is a republic. It's not, we have a representative democracy, but we don't have like a 1-for-1, democracy. Let's see. Say that the role of government needs to protect the minority of the opulent against a tyranny. Yeah, that's like mob rule. A majority doing anything in one direction, it can intimidate and threaten. And we've just lived through a lot of this, of how mob rules. It's the tyranny of the majority. I think that is accurate. The government needs to protect the people from people who have the ability to
logging on the phone.
Have
this majority mob rule.
Okay. Taj, are you okay? Are you?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch off to the phone real quick.
Let me see if I can get her questions in, and then and I'll save the ones I wrote. A bunch of these
access down. And allow entering broadcast studio. Oh, I'm ugly on the phone. Damn.
Okay. So from Nicole Rutland, or are you able to go, or like because we do have some for you. I can pull up. Otherwise, I can. All right. We'll wait for that one. Okay. So from Nicole Rutland to Keisha, what does Marxism have to do with the nuclear family? Oh my God, he's in here on 2 different devices now. Hi.
Okay, I like the computer angle better.
We're gonna have to remove one of those. Oh, you're gonna have to turn something off. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so all right, so I guess we can go to this question then. From Lyceum Podcast to Taj, why do you think they took down the mission statement on the BLM website?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I honestly, I think it's really freaking dumb to like post that and then take it down. It went from BLM to like March Movement for Black Lives, I believe. So it might be something to do with that. But the state, the permanence of the internet, the statement's going to be there. You can find it in other locations. So I don't think it was moved down to stop people from looking at that. Maybe there's like a change in leadership. To my understanding, I think there might have been a change in leadership where it went from Movement for Black Lives. So I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. All right. So from Lyceum Podcast, why are we abandoning the nuclear family model when we have the results of the last 100 years of Black single-parent homes? Do you know that Black Lives Matter statement targets this?
Yes, I'm certainly aware. I have no idea why we would, like I said before, I have no idea why they would. Actually, I do think I know, because their agenda is not really to help Black people. Their agenda is to tear down structures. Their agenda is a Marxist agenda. It is to remove what they believe are the privilege, and they've identified who these privileged are. The white people are all privileged, and all the Blacks and everybody else is, oppressed. And if you don't, abide by this, then you're not. If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. So, I mean, I think their idea was to further tear down that system, because when you put a message out there, they didn't say, even though they call themselves Black Lives Matter, they're not saying we want to tear this down just for Black people. They want to tear it down for everybody. They don't want that system to exist at all. And so it is they want to tear down the structures of traditional, and they talk about it, the patriarchy and all of this stuff. Those are structures that they feel are not
There's
good.
Nothing wrong with getting rid of the patriarchy. There's
What's
nothing
that?
wrong with, there's nothing wrong getting rid of the patriarchy. And I believe you said earlier, Keisha, that targeting certain races with legislation is a bad thing. So when you say that, like, getting rid of the requirement, once again, dismantling the requirement of a nuclear family is, like, when you say that targets, like, the majority, like, everybody, not just Black people, isn't that a good thing? Like, I want single parents of all races in America, in the country that I live in, to thrive. And in order to better thrive, and maybe there should be less of a requirement to be in a nuclear family, less of a it's not a de jure requirement, right? It's not like, oh, if you're a single mom, we're gonna have, like, the cops come and shoot you. It's more like, okay, yeah, you're a single mom, so you have to work full time, and you also have to be a parent full time, and that weighs down on someone, and it's not good for the kids. It's not good for the parent. If there are ways that we can have more community-based rearing, then that'd be better for the community, for the individuals involved in that family, and for the future of our country.
Okay, but that's not for a government to decide. If that's what you and your little pocket of community, and that's what y'all want to do, then y'all do that. But for the government, because this is the thing. They're not just merely blogging about this. They are trying to push policy.
Yes.
I mean, that's not for you. That's not for you to decide, especially when Black Americans already have a high rate of single motherhood. Why in the world would we want to further perpetuate that circumstance when we have seen, like he said, in the last 100 years, that it has devastated? It has not helped our community. There is no statistic that you can find that, you know what, single motherhood as a whole has just benefited Black folks. That's crazy. It's not a color thing. It's a universal law thing. It's like, if you don't have a stable family, you are more likely to have higher crime, not finish school. I mean, there are, things that will happen. It's like, cause and effect. If this cause happens, it will have the effects of this. It is not, I don't care what color you are. If white people all of a sudden had a high single motherhood rate, they would experience a lot of the same types of problems that we see in Black families, because it's not a race thing. That is not a racial thing. It is a principle thing. It's a universal law. It transcends race. And so for them to it's a slap in the face. You got the nerve to call yourself an organization for that says Black Lives Matter and have the audacity to put on your website that that we need less nuclear families. That's an insult.
Keisha, that's misreading. You constantly
Sorry.
I like, and like you. All right, so you found a quote from Marx, but you couldn't find a quote from BLM saying they want to destroy every family. Destroying the requirement is not destroying the family.
Okay, at this point, that's semantics, and I'm ready to.
We gotta get onto some of the rest of these questions because we gotta close it down about 15 minutes. All right. So from Big Papa Fascist, ask King if she is proud of our great nuclear family dynamic and if she would like to see more of that happen in this nation and how she thinks we can do that.
I am proud of the nuclear family dynamic. I think we need to promote that, incentivize that. I think welfare is a horrible way. I think that we instead of incentivizing people to, use it for the time being and then, wean themselves off of it, we incentivize them to stay on it. And that is one thing that we can do in this country to start seeing, because you will be less tempted to, if you know that you're going to have to take care of these children by yourself, work and do all of these things, that you don't have that crutch that's right there, that you're going to have to go through some hardships, that you're going to have to work a little bit harder, struggle a little bit more. You will be, you will take more responsibility and more accountability in the things that you do in your life. You'll be like, I don't think I should. I think I'm going to practice abstinence because I don't want to have to raise these kids by myself. I don't have a safety net, you'll start to think differently. But if you know, I can just jump off this building and there's a net right there, it's going to catch me anytime, you will be more apt to jump. If you knew that there wasn't a safety net, your behind would not be jumping off of anything. You would be like, well, let me think about this thing for a little bit. Do I really want to do this?
So from Big Papa Fascist, can you ask King if she thinks Marxism is the most dangerous ideology facing America today?
Do I think that Marxism is the most?
We do have a few questions, so let's try to keep the answers a little bit brief so we can get to all of them.
Okay. I do. Okay. So as a believer, I think that the lack of God is the most dangerous thing in our society today. Then I would say, but I think that lack of God is what leads people, is the interest in Marxism, because when you take away God, especially the biblical Christian God, he talks about all these things and how things aren't equal and the poor will always be with you. God talks, he deals with all of these things. And so when you remove God, then you start to entertain these other things. And so I think God being out of the social sphere is probably, it is, in my opinion, the most dangerous thing today.
We're gonna have to keep going because we got to get to the questions, and so we can still do closing statements. Is he still talking? Does it look like he's still talking? Okay. So from King Odin Zeus, Mr. Pace, what is their opinion on international wealth in Black America, and what would be the most efficient way of implementing it within their community?
I don't international wealth in Black America. I need more context, and I'm not really sure what that means.
We can move on from that one. All right, so we have some from Taj, but I don't know if your internet's kind of getting all choppy on us. Try saying something.
Hey, checking.
Okay, there we go.
All right, I think you're good. All right, so we got some questions from you that I had to jot down because I knew we wouldn't be able to get to them. It starts to not let me pull them up after a while. All right, so let me just get rid of that one. All right, so from Lyceum to Taj, should anyone's skin color dictate the way the world views? If you answer no, what's the deal with critical race theory and Black Lives Matter focus on white people so much?
No, I don't think. I think we should move past race as a society, but there are two ways to go about that. One way is just like abolish it immediately, is my understanding of what conservatives say. The other way is to create equity, and then race doesn't matter, right? So, if abolish it immediately, then that means black people are disproportionate, right? Like, conservatives know black people do more crime, black people have less wealth built up than their white counterparts. To get those levels back where it's more equal and equitable, that's when you can start talking about things like
Cutting out a bit.
I had a lot of caffeine. I've been up since like 5.
No, you're fine, but you're cutting out a little bit.
Oh, I am? Okay, do you guys hear what I said?
What?
You guys hear what I said?
A little bit.
Some of it.
It was really important too.
Can I just add one? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
There are two ways.
What's that now?
Sorry.
There are 2 ways to move past race in America. One way is to immediately get past race and then like the same without any sort of equitable change, right? So that means people that are black are more likely to do crime in the United States. People that are black are more likely to be locked up because they're in lower income neighborhoods. People that are black are less wealthy as a whole than their white counterparts. Or we can make things a little bit more equitable, then take out race, where race doesn't matter anymore. One way the conservatives they like the first one. I don't know why they do. I have no clue why. And
cutting out again.
And race actually won't happen in the country. I'm a fan of the second one, where things are more equitable. Then we can move to a closer society. Like I prefer not being in a racial society. It happen in a proper way where it doesn't screw later generations.
Okay.
I would just say really quick, the way the equity is being promoted today you can't extract the race part from it. That's number one. So them two things don't go together the way it's being promoted today. Race is tied to equity. Number two, we have to stop with the notion that just because there is a disparity, the default is that it happened because of race. If you stop there, it is so intellectually lazy to just stop there and say, oh, well, they black, so they're automatically being discriminated against. It's like, whoa. I mean, you don't know. Like, let's take a little bit. If we stop there and we say every disparity is caused by racism, then we won't ever get to the real causes of what the disparity is, why it occurred. Everything can't be freaking racist. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's my 2 cents.
Keisha, what is disparity caused by? You can only say
I don't know, Taj. It depends on what it is. You can't just say, oh, well, there's a disparity, therefore racism. What? That's crazy.
Give me your best guess on why black people do more crime and why black people are less wealthy than their white counterparts. What is your best guess on why that is?
There are many reasons. First of all, most black people do just fine. That's number one.
Well, yeah.
Number two, typically the reason why we have more crime, it's a lot. Education, culture, things that we upbringing, that's culture. Just education, culture. Those are probably the 2 things off the top of my head that are probably the biggest things that I can think of right now. But
what creates culture? What creates culture?
What creates culture? I don't know. Ideas create culture. Beliefs create culture. Music creates culture. Art creates culture. All these things contribute to culture.
America before rap music, before the advent of rap music, right? So what led black people in cultures like that, where things like rap music were created?
What led black people to? I didn't catch the whole thing.
So you're blaming rap music, right? So black people were I
didn't say that. Well,
Okay.
I said several things.
Right. But all right, can you agree that culture is made by environment? Like the culture of someone in Florida is different than the culture of someone in Texas versus it's just different than the culture of someone in New York.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so what led Black people to different environments?
Different things.
Like Jim Crow laws and slavery and the war on drugs, perhaps?
No, because there was a long period of time after slavery, the 100 years after slavery, you saw well intact families, you saw very intact, you saw, for lack of a better word, righteous culture, like a culture of, pride and doing for self and accountability, responsibility, and carrying yourself a certain way, and a dependency on God, a ton of things that we don't practice today as
Black or religious
Black people as a whole.
That's literally not true. Black people are more likely to be religious than our white counterparts. Like we shouldn't attack into this. All right, so
okay, let me just say this. I don't compare myself to white people. Okay. That's not my standard of, like what I'm striving for. I am not striving to, I'm trying to be like the best white girl. The whole notion, like I got to go and compare myself to see what white folks are doing to determine what I'm going to do. I don't think that way. I don't teach my children to think that way. And that is not something that, I don't give a damn, white people are doing all kinds of stuff. Black people are doing all kinds of stuff. We're all out here doing all kinds of different things. So I don't have to compare myself to what my white counterpart is doing today, yesterday, and the day after that. That is not my concern. I'm not trying to, chase after what white people are doing. I mean, if I see a white person that's doing something that I like, oh, okay. I might see a Black person that's doing something that I like. Okay, that's cool. I mean, I can learn from anyone and better myself from anybody.
I'm not specifically about your life and your core values and things like that. I'm talking about societally. I'm talking about like just looking at things like data. When you say that Black fatherlessness is higher than white fatherlessness, I think you said that a little bit earlier, right? Or you implied it. Like when there are trends like that, like that are backed by data and stuff like that, then maybe there should be like bigger structural changes in society to.
Okay, but when you just default to racism,
racism led Black people to this.
Taj, that is not true. Like I said, there was a long period of time where we did not have that was closer to slavery. So if this was a result of slavery, we should have had more of this closer to slavery than we have it today. That is not. So when you talk about data, if you look back, those 100 years after slavery, we were crushing it so much so that the entire world was yes, I'm talking about in terms of our gains. In terms of our gains, the accomplishments that we were, what?
Yeah. Going from slave to poor is quite a jump. But like
you misunderstand the importance of the gain. You misunderstand. You're not being. It's almost like you're looking at this purely from an American tucked off in the corner mindset. The world is much bigger than America. So poor. Even when we talk about poor today, is not a poverty compared to the rest of the world. So we're looking at this purely through like American view, and the gain that we had from slave to from slave, totally ignorant, totally uneducated, no opportunity, chained, bound, killed, all of these things. When you go from that to the progress that we've made in that 100 years, you doggone right. I am proud, and I appreciate every ancestor who bared that struggle and got us to a place where the world took notice, like, dang, they are really killing. Like there was other countries took note of the phenomenal progress that we had made from poor, not even poor, talking about beyond poor, totally ignorant, not being able to read, not denied every right that a human being should have, and make that type of progress. Yes, that is something that we need to be more honor. We need to honor that, and we need to look back and see what they did instead of complaining about the little bull crap that's going on today. Because it is nothing. When we sit up here and talking about, oh my God, somebody followed me in a store, and it's Jim Crow 2.0. You are doing a disservice. You are not honoring what Jim Crow was really like, because there's no comparison of what happened then to today.
You guys, so wait, hold on, Taj, before we, because we're gonna have to, we're not gonna be able to get to all the questions because we do have a debate coming up in a little bit. So I'm gonna, there was one that Big Papa Fascist did say, asked the pretty girl how she got so base. So I don't know if that was an actual question, but let's yeah, that was definitely you.
What does that mean?
Based? Oh, you haven't heard based.
Based is good.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. But
I don't know what it means, but
yeah, I just learned this word. It's like all the Zoomer kids talk about it. Okay, but we guys, we're gonna do closing statements. Let's make them as brief as possible because we do have to get to another debate. So if Taj, if you want to start us up, keep it like under 3 minutes.
Okay. I think BLM is awesome. I think equity is a good thing that we need in order to move to a truly post-racial society where there's not very much disparity between Black and white people. I think that it is very important to acknowledge the positioning of people's race in society, our existing, where to make, to have every American live a better life than the people that were there before them. It's awesome. It is awesome that Keisha thinks that we had such a great life right after slavery, where during Reconstruction and during Jim Crow, that it's worth a return to that. I don't think that's the case. I think we should move forward into the future. We are children of people. We are children of a society that wanted to move forward into the future. And spitting in their face, out, and slap their face while they roll in their graves or something like that and setting those graves on fire. I think that's wrong. I think that's un-American. Not like I'm pro-America. I'm pro-Black people. I'm pro-white people. I'm pro-post-racial society. We just need to do this the right way. We just need to do it in a way that works, and in a way that builds equity, in a way that's fair for everybody. Where some people matter, maybe. It negatively affect them.
Yeah, you're cutting out quite a bit.
Right. The thing that happened to Botham John and the thing that happened to Trayvon Martin being followed, that wouldn't happen to their white counterparts. That I really don't think that would happen. Where you're some kid in a hoodie if they're white. I don't think that's dead ass. I don't think that's gonna happen. And then the positioning that Black people are in, while it is better than Reconstruction in the 1960s, it's still not where it should be. And I want to move into a better future and a better America. That's what I have.
All right, thank you.
Much.
All right, Keisha. I don't know.
Well, I don't know how you got that. I want to return to like Jim Crow or the HUD. Like I want to go back to that time. I said we should look at what they did to progress as fast as they did, and as how we should just look back. I mean, it's nothing wrong. I mean, people do this. This is how you learn. You go and you look, you study. I mean, if you want to be, I don't know, a millionaire, if you want to learn economics, you go, you look back at what the people who have done a good job in doing that. That doesn't mean you want to return to the time. You're just looking at what they did to see what you can gain from it. And that's all I'm saying on that. I'm saying we could learn a lot from how they handled struggle. We could learn a lot from that. That's all I'm saying. Yes, these things do happen to white folks. It's just not, it happens to not only white folks, as far as like shootings and things like that are concerned. The exact same situation happened to a white guy that happened to George Floyd. And it actually happened, I believe, a couple years, or 2019, I believe. There were several white men that very same knee on the neck, died. They have it on camera. Police were laughing at the guy while his face was in the ground dying. That happened to a white guy. What? That's
a bad thing. That to happen.
I did not interrupt you. This is my time. I'm like Maxine, reclaiming my time. Okay. So that has happened to a lot of different people. But the thing is, the media don't find those stories worthy. They would rather play on the pain of Black people, play on our emotions, and make all this hoopla when it happens to a Black person, and totally ignore it when it happens to another human being, because their skin hue is not dark enough. Nobody's gonna care. So we are being played to and made to believe that this is only happening to Black people. I think that is one of the most egregious and evil things that this country can do right now in the media, is to take the tragedies that happen to Black people, blow them up, and totally forget about the same types of tragedies that are happening in other communities. Again, when you focus on race, you miss the real underlying problems. So these things will never get solved, because they keep just pushing out a narrative. They don't want to really solve the problem. They don't want to really solve the problem of, maybe more training that needs to happen, police reform that may need to happen, or really looking into, like, when these instances come up, what may actually need to happen. Because we're only focused on, it happened because they're Black. Well, damn it, you're always going to be Black, and somebody's always going to be white, and somebody's always going to be something else. So as long as we keep focusing on that, we will never get to the problem. So that is my problem with equity. That is my problem with critical race theory. That is my problem with Black Lives Matter. They are all focused on race instead of focusing on the real issues, because at the end of the day, it is the human heart that is troubled. Like the Bible says, it is desperately wicked. Who can know it? So in order for us to solve that problem, in my opinion, that is why we need a savior. That is why we need Christ, because we know the Bible tells us flat out up front, human beings have a heart problem. You will never cure all of the ills of society because it's a heart thing. And we're trying to fix them with laws and all of this other stuff that will never solve the problem. So,
all right. Well, thank you guys both for coming on. This was a great debate. Really appreciate it. I'm glad your internet was better, Taj, tonight, other than the end. But yeah, and thank you so much, Akeisha, for coming on.
Thank you.
Back on again.
And Brittany, you are so pretty, girl.
Stop it. Right back at you. Yeah, so if you guys are here, we do have another debate coming up in about 10 minutes. It will not be on this stream. It'll be on another one. It's going to be on the 1619 project, which is something I guess I'm going to be learning about along with other people, I'm sure. So yeah, come check that out. Thanks again for coming on. And I think we're done. Good night, guys.